First hell, then space. Sure, why the hell not?
Guys, it's okay. He just wanted his machete back.
Welcome to the Dave Cave. I, as always, am Dave. Now, before we get started, stay on top of all things horror and a little bit of heroes like reviews, rants, rankings, and reactions. Hit that subscribe, ding the bell, so you don't miss a minute. Today we are talking the 10th and final entry in the original Friday the 13th franchise with Jason X. Directed by James Isaac, Jason X stars Lexa Doig, or Doig, it's again another little twisty name, as Rowan, and then again, for his fourth time in a row, Kane Hodder back as Jason. Much like Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X picks up in the world of Friday the 13th, with really not much linking it to the previous 9 movies. And in this one, Jason has been captured. And after he's been captured, it is chosen by the powers that be that he's going to be then studied for science and basically his immortality and his resilience used for a weapon. But when they get the idea to actually finally move him, he breaks free. Our final girl, Rowan, gets him into a cryo chamber, freezes his ass. He breaches the cryo chamber. They both freeze. And hundreds of years later, they're found by a research team. Then Jason starts to thaw and gets right back to business. As I've mentioned before, this was the first Jason movie I'd ever seen. And holy hell, is it a mixed bag. So let's just jump right in. And here is the good. My first entry in the good column is the use of plot devices. Now, once you get past the idea that it's Jason in space, because that is ridiculous. It absolutely is. It is a ridiculous concept, but when you accept it, that this is going to be a movie about Jason being put into space, the way they do it makes a fair amount of sense. Because that's what would happen. If they captured Jason, that's what they would try to do. They try to manipulate him and figure out what makes him tick. And then he would get frozen. And then a research team would find him years later, and he would thaw out because we know he's immortal. He's going to keep doing what he does. When you think about it in terms of that, of how to get Jason into space, it seemed a pretty airtight logic for me. Then later when we get to Uber Jason, as crazy as that is, they base it in a pretty grounded potential concept of using these nanites to heal people, and they even introduce it early in the movie when they heal Rowan after she's been frozen. I dug that. You can get behind that. Again, you have to let go of the fact that it's Jason in space. Accept that it's Jason in space, and a lot more stuff is easier to swallow. For my second entry in the good column, it's the non-victims in this movie, like Rowan, the final girl, KM, Brodsky, the grunts. I dig that. I dig these people that they have in this movie that go on the offensive. As I've said before, I love when the tables get turned on the killers. So when you have these people, it's just a fair number of them in this movie, go after Jason, I dig it. Especially when KM gets her crack at his ass. For my final entry in the good column, it really shouldn't come as much of a surprise, but Jason. He is a full-on beast in this movie. He looks great. Kane, again, nails the performance. From the opening scene, the opening kill spree, which features a fucking kill on David Cronenberg, by the way, to when he fights the grunts, finally when he goes Uber. I loved every minute of Jason in this movie. And when he does go Uber, I dig the insanity of that concept because, as I said, I accepted what this movie was trying to be. And in the logic of that, Uber Jason really works. But as I mentioned earlier, Jason X is very much a mixed bag. And I have no illusions about what this movie is. So let's move right into, the bad. For my first entry in the bad column, it's the choice to yet again stray from the continuity. And not just a little bit, a lot. Jason Goes to Hell took us on a weird, strange, twisted roller coaster, and Jason X goes for that again. Now having seen all of them, I wish that they kind of would have capitalized on it being X, and the excitement that was behind that with it being 10 Friday the 13th movies, and maybe gone with more of like a legacy angle. But they went with a space angle, and that space angle is ridiculous. You have another movie that is another what-if concept that doesn't really hold any place in the continuity. Really, at the end of the day, Jason X doesn't really matter. And it's probably a good thing that when I did go see Jason X for the first time, I hadn't seen these other 9. For my second entry in the bad column, really it's the use of CG and really kind of any of the special effects work that they did in the movie. From when you have Jason cut through the whole augmented reality alien, when you have Grendel plow through Solaris, you have these moments that, because they weren't done well, it cheapened the effect of the whole movie. Really, Jason X was a laughable concept from the outset. People went into it, okay, Jason in space, yada yada yada, not taking this movie seriously. But then you have things that bring down the general quality of the movie, and it hurts everything involved. That sucked. For me, none of those effects screamed theatrical release. Like, all that should have been straight to video type crap. For my last entry in the bad column, it's The Victims. Jason X was another Friday the 13th movie that I didn't care about anybody who died in this movie. Even Rowan, the final girl, I did not care. I take that back. I cared if the pilots died. But that's because I think I knew them before. It had nothing to do with, really, if they died in the movie. Really, you knew they were going to die. They're just throw-off characters. They're fun, they're funny, they're interesting, but you know they're going to die. And that's not to say that I hated anybody who was in this movie. I just didn't care. I really didn't. Anybody, for me, could have died in this movie. I like to care about characters. I like to feel something when people die in movies. But I guess that's what you get for Jason in space. And now we're going to move on to one of the best parts of Jason X, and that is the kills. Without a doubt, the majority of the brain power that was put into Jason X absolutely had to have gone into the kills. Sometimes they're quick, sometimes they're a little bit more inventive, and sometimes they're straight up callback kills, like the sleeping bag VR kill, and then again when KM gets her head punched off. Since seeing this movie years ago in theaters, to this day I've regularly referenced kills from this movie because they're solid, memorable, and yeah, sometimes they're a little humorous. And because they're so solid, it was again really hard to pick what was my favorite in this movie. But my award for favorite kill of the movie goes to Condor. He comes across Jason, gives the idea that he might actually try to fight Jason. That gets thrown out the window pretty quickly when Jason knocks him over a rail and he lands at a gigantic drill bit. And then to cap it all off, he starts to spin all the way down the drill bit to the bottom. It's a solid, hilarious, yet actually really brutal kill, and it's a great visual. That's a solid kill all the way around. To quote Briggs, Condor, you got screwed, pal. Now, question of the day, because they are again a huge part of my enjoyment of this movie. Which is your favorite kill? Is it Liquid Nitrogen? Is it the David Cronenberg kill? Is it Jason himself before he becomes Uber Jason? Hit the comments below. Let me know. Now for my final thoughts on the last entry in the original Friday the 13th franchise, Jason X. Despite all of its flaws and missteps, I really do enjoy Jason X. But not as a Friday the 13th movie. I enjoy Jason X as a Jason got dropped in a whole murder playground type concept. This is the only one where I legitimately root for Jason to win. I love watching him work in this one. I love watching him do what he does best. Yes, even when he's Uber Jason. I like him. He rocks. I've popped Jason X in numerous times in the past, and I sure as hell am going to again in the future. I thought maybe that seeing the previous 9 might change the way I think about Jason X, but it really doesn't, and that makes me happy. There we have it. I've officially reviewed the entire original Friday the 13th franchise, and that leaves just one more. That is the 2009 remake. That is not coming on Thursday. I know these have been coming out Tuesday, Thursday, really through the entirety of the series. This one's going to be coming out on the weekend. I have a little bit of stuff going on, but it's coming. And then right on its heels, Freddy Krueger. And if you haven't already, that gives you a chance to catch up on my review series. I did one through Jason Goes to Hell. I have links to all those in the description below. Be sure to go check those out. And while you're down there, I have links to my Instagram and Twitter. They're both at @TheDaveCave_. I post over there when I'm not posting here. And that is going to do it for me today. Thank you so much, as always, for stopping by the Dave Cave. I'll see you this weekend for the remake. Till then, take care.